بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome back to another installment of the Islam Answers book review series. I'm your host, Yusuf Askar, and once again, I'm delighted to be joined by our esteemed guest and teacher, Sheikh Noorud-deen Rashid. And in this video, we'll be looking at an introductory primer to the science of Nahu, which is known as the science of grammar. The text is known as Mukhtasar al-Ajrumiyyah. It's a very good starting point for anyone who has no prior exposure and is looking to learn the Arabic language. So, Sheikhna, if you do the honors to introduce the text for us, please.
So this, as mentioned, is a book on Arabic grammar. It's an introductory book. So when a person is ready to start studying grammar, I do believe this is an excellent point. So what will this book cover? What kind of things will it speak about? It will speak about the categorization of words, into nouns and verbs, for examples, and huruf as well. For example, and huruf as well. It will speak about when a word is pronounced in a particular manner. So, for example, the average reader of Arabic text will be familiar with the fact that sometimes you say Muhammadun, sometimes you say Muhammadan, sometimes you say Muhammadin, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This will help you to understand when and how this will help you to understand when and how that is to be done. So the book works through the Arabic, gives you an overview of the Arabic language, because it's a book of grammar, and it explains how the Arabic language is organized.
Shukran, Sheikhna. So just on that point about the text structure, would you say that there's essentially a gradual progression? So we start with the types of words, then we go on to phrases, and then we go into sentences. You're essentially seeing how these rules of grammar are applied in the language itself.
Yes, no doubt. And it's important advice for anybody who studies a text like this or any book on Arabic grammar is initially what you have to do is just understand the specific lesson that's been presented to you. Sometimes a mistake people make with this work and other works of grammar is right from the beginning they want to understand the full context, and that's very, very difficult. Here, essentially what happens, the text itself, you may say, is divided into two halves. The first half, it just speaks about the signs. What's the sign of rafa and nasb and khaf? Those are things that you'll understand when you actually study the text. But then the second half of it tells you when those particular signs are to appear. You see, so it's important advice for people who are studying this work that you understand the lesson before you for now, and then don't expect to understand the full context until you're really towards the end of it.
And just a follow-up question on that, Sheikh. I see on the folder here it's written Mukhtasar, and Mukhtasar can be, if I'm not mistaken, it can be understood as like an introduction, right? A primer. So would you say this is the most basic work in Arabic grammar? Was there anything more basic than that?
When we're speaking about classical works, this is one of the simpler works out there. In terms of Mukhtasar, this is an abridgment of the Ajrumiyyah. Personally, I teach the Ajrumiyyah regularly, so I have abridged it somewhat because my experience with the students, I felt I wanted to focus on certain aspects far more than others, and I felt certain aspects were taking us off to a tangent that wasn't required at their level, so that's why I produced an ikhtisar of it. That's why I abridged it somewhat.
And just last and final question, Sheikhna. What do you feel has more priority when it comes to learning the Arabic language? Would you say it's for like grammar and the structure of sentences in learning the language, or is it more priority should be given to vocabulary and words and meanings and that kind of thing, and how word patterns and that sort of thing?
If I had to choose between sarf and nahu, sarf morphology, word patterns, as you've said, the structure of the words themselves, and nahu, the sentence structure, etc., I would say in the Arabic language, sarf should be given a little bit more priority, although you do have to study both. And the reason for that is, obviously, you start off by identifying words, and then identifying how those words change and how that affects the meaning. However, I am very strongly of the mind that when you study the Arabic language, you should focus on, as you mentioned, vocabulary. Okay, And as soon as possible, you should be trying to use the vocab that you've picked up. Personally, I teach Arabic, and I've been teaching it for many years. I teach it as beginners, intermediate, advanced, and then something I call advanced plus, at which stage I'm just delivering in Arabic. The entire lesson is in Arabic. I do not teach this at the beginners level. I feel it's the wrong way, it's the wrong path. It's too much at that stage. People don't even have much vocab in place. They've got very little grasp of the language, and you're introducing them to some, at times, even in this primary text, at times somewhat deep aspects of grammar. So I believe that grammar should be taught later on. I will teach it at the intermediate level. But with both sarf and nahu, with grammar and morphology, I believe you should teach the people the basics of both, and then not delve into it more deeply until they are really quite familiar with the language.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. That's all we have time for. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next installment of the Islam Answers book review series. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.